And co-founder of Bookstr. We are here today with Josh Robbins. He is the Chief Strategy Officer of America's Best 401k, and he is here with us today to enlighten us and inform us about investing, and also to talk about his dad's book. His dad, Tony Robbins, wrote this book, Unshakable, and Josh has some key tips from that as well. Josh, thank you for being here today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you
very
much. Yeah, it's great.
It's really fun. I got to interview your dad, and I got you. We got
All right,
meet the whole family here.
Meet the rest of my siblings next.
Bring them. Thank you so much for being here. I think this is a real treat. You've got a quite impressive career yourself. Can you talk a little bit about kind of who you are and what you do, so our audience can familiarize themselves with you?
Yeah, so I've been in financial services my whole life, investing, etc. And so in 2008, actually, during the financial crisis, my dad and I were out golfing, and he had the idea for his first financial book, which was Money Master the Game, where he interviewed 50 of the top financial minds in the world to say, hey, look, is the game still winnable? Right? I think a lot of people out there, particularly millennials, are very skeptical of financial institutions and are saying, hey, look, can I even win this game? Or is the game rigged? Right?
Yeah.
They kind of have a sneaking suspicion. And by the way, there are a lot of pitfalls, tricks of the trade, a lot of brokers out there and people that want to take your money. But I think there's definitely a path to win the game. So I had the privilege of being on the research team during that process and got to have a kind of a front row seat to those interviews with these amazing, amazing minds. And he boiled that down into a 800-page book, 700-page book called Money Master the Game, and went on to create what I'll call the Cliff Notes version with some additional insights, which I think are even more applicable today in Unshakable.
Awesome.
So yeah.
That is great. And how long has the company been around?
So in this process, back in 2014.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, back in 2014, we were on the hunt for a solution for the 401k space, because what happened was, as Tony interviewed all these financial minds, they were all saying, hey, if you want to make a huge difference in America, the first place you need to look is 401ks. Mm-hmm. That's where 90 million Americans are utilizing a 401k more than own a home.
Yeah, so wait, let's talk a little bit about just to make sure that everyone's on the same playing field. The 401k, usually it's associated with your job, your employer, your husband's employer, your wife's employer.
That's right.
Sometimes you have to do it independently, like for instance, if you're in a startup, like what this is, you have to go to your bank and do it that way, or go to someone else.
Yeah. Or you can set up an individual retirement account called an IRA.
Yeah.
So you can do that as well.
Yeah. And just like the concept is basically, and I'll let you explain because I'm not the financial expert here. So
sure. Yeah. Well, so the concept is you really want to get in the game of investing, right? And the game of investing is you want to be able to put money away on a pre-tax basis, meaning you don't have to pay tax on the money. So if you make 10 grand in a month and you put away $1,000, that way it goes into the account and you only have to pay tax on the 9,000 remaining. So you put in money pre-tax, and that money will grow tax deferred, or you don't have to pay tax on it. And then when you retire, you will pay tax on the money when you pull it out. So the idea is...
At the same tax rate, or...?
At the tax rate at the time of you retire.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it all depends on where tax rates are at that time, right?
Yeah.
So you never really know. But it's really an important component, because I think people are nervous about investing, and I think they shouldn't be. I think history shows that even today, I mean, this last week, the market is at all-time highs.
Yeah.
Right? It continues to go up over time because...
Does that mean it's going to... Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Does that mean it's going to bubble, like it's going to blow up soon? Like if it's high right now, it means like it's got to break at some point?
So that's perfect. Let's camp on that for a second, because that was actually the core of Tony's book Unshakable, which is he walks through these, what he calls freedom facts, because there's sometimes people have a lot of fear around investing, but once you understand how markets work, you really don't have to be fearful. In fact, you can look at it as an opportunity. So let me give you an example.
Okay.
So the market's at an all-time high right now, but if you look at historically, the market will have a correction, which is a 10% drop or more, but not more than 20% once a year on average.
Oh, wow.
So this is a nice roller coaster that you're on. You have to understand that. Bear markets that are big drops like 2008 and tech bubble in 2001, those happen about every 3 to 5 years on average.
Okay.
So what does that mean though? But every single one of them has always given way to a new high. So these are just some mountain peaks along the troughs along the way, but the market doesn't mean it always will, but the market always has to this point continually gone up, because really what you're doing when you're investing is you're really moving from a consumer to an owner. Instead of just owning the iPhone, you want to own Apple, right? You want to be a part of owning the American enterprise, which has always continued to make profit and continue to grow.
Totally.
So when you understand,
I love that.
Yeah.
Go USA.
Yeah, and when you understand that the markets are going to behave this way, you actually start to look at these as opportunities to buy. So if your favorite brand of clothes was on sale 50% off next week, you'd be excited, right?
Yeah.
Or 40% off. The same is true with the stock market. I always say the stock market is the only thing that people don't like in America when it's on sale.
Weird.
So when the market goes down, you actually start to look at that as opportunistic. Like, wow, I can buy into the market at lower amounts, at a sale price, so to speak.
Okay.
So that's a really important thing to understand for millennials and, quite frankly, everybody who gets nervous about the market going up.
So say that you have a 401k.
Yep.
Who is doing the investing for you through that? Like, if are you saying to put your money there? Or are you saying to put your money in your own, investing?
Well, I think that's a good question. It depends on each individual. But what you really want to look for, if you're an individual who's never invested before, what I would find is like an asset allocation that's managed for you. And that's a fancy word for certain types of investments, so you have a diversified mix of investments. So not everything is dependent on maybe the U.S. stock market. Maybe you have some international. Maybe you have some bonds. Maybe you have some other things, because different asset classes will go up and down at different times. Mm-hmm. And one of the biggest things that we discuss in the book is fees. You got to understand that fees will erode your returns.
Yeah.
And remember, there's a lot of companies and brokers out there that want to make sure that they get paid first before you make returns. So you have to. Now, nothing's free.
Yeah.
But you really do have to understand and manage those fees, because it's a great way to accelerate your path to freedom.
Do people tell you their fees up front? Is that they have to, or
sometimes they disclose it, but it's like, if you leased a car, did you read the lease?
No.
Right. No one does. No one reads their closing docs of their home. No one reads anything. Right. So these are often disclosed.
Well, they read books though.
They read books. But so we give you the quick kind of tools to know what to look out for when it comes to fees, because
smart.
I'll give you an example. If you and I had the same investment accounts, and I had 1% in fees and you had 2% in fees, and we both had the same returns, assuming over our lifetime, at the end of the day, you would run out of money 10 years earlier than I would.
Whoa.
In retirement.
That's a long.
Simply because of 1 percentage point in fees.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
So fees are incredibly important to be able to maximize your financial future.
So really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a few questions here for you, and then I want to go ahead and say that we are taking live questions from the audience, so you guys go ahead and get your questions in now.
Perfect.
All right, let's see. Okay, here's one for you, and this is one we got ahead of time, and you kind of already spoke to this, but how do you know what your fees are? This
is a great question. So if you are employed by a company that has a 401k plan, and if you're already investing in that 401k plan, which more than likely you should, especially if they match it, right?
Yeah.
So they're giving you free money effectively. So
is matching negotiable with your employer?
No, they give everybody the same match. So it's usually a percentage of your salary, like 5% or 4% or 8%. Some of them are up to 8%. So if they're going to do that, that means for every dollar you put in, they're going to put $1. So you got to take advantage of that, right?
If they do it. There's very few companies that do that.
That's true. It's usually big companies that do that. But you know what? The truth is, unemployment is really low right now. So that usually when someone's going to hire someone, they're going to take them from another company.
Yeah.
So that's causing a competitive spirit amongst companies to match. So take advantage.
I like it.
I would say this: if you have a 401k with a company, you actually can ask whoever the provider is, call the customer service line, and ask them for a copy of your fee disclosure. And a fee disclosure will really help you start to map that out.
And they have to give you that.
They have to give you that. And I would say, as a benchmark, as a rule of thumb, you really would want to be paying 0.75%, so 0.75% or less. That should include everything. So if you start to see numbers that are north of that, that means you might be paying some high fees.
That is such good advice. It's really nice of you to give us that little tip right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Write that down. Okay, Oh, and then I have another question for you before we get to our audience questions. And don't forget, you guys put in your questions and we will take them live here. I already have some coming in, but okay, so you invest in the 401k, and what I'm not understanding is you put your money into your company. And does that mean your company is investing on your behalf with whoever they want, or you just have to trust Joe Blow to kind of figure it out for you on behalf of,
That's a great question. So you usually have two options. You're going to have a list of funds to choose from. Mm-hmm. So they're typically index funds or mutual funds, and those are really fancy for a company that's going to manage that fund for you. So you buy into that fund. And so again, low-cost funds are better. But there's also another option, and they're called target date funds. And target date funds make it really simple. So basically, you could just calculate at what age or what year do I think I'm going to retire, right? So if I'm going to retire 30 years from now, I might invest in the target date 2050 fund, right?
God, that's a while.
Right? Isn't that crazy? But that's the fun. So what that means is, then I can literally I can put it there and not worry about it ever again, because they're going to manage it aggressively when I'm younger, because I can take more risk. And as I get closer to retirement, I don't want as much volatility. So it's going to get they're going to manage it more conservatively. So this way I don't have to think about it, and those are often good choices as well, provided they have good fees, low fees.
So if you are sharing someone else's 401k, what does that mean?
We don't really actually ever share a 401k. You mean like a spouse? Yeah. So everybody, they're only done for individuals.
Okay, so we have a lot of women in the audience. Mm-hmm. So say their husband has a 401k,
yep,
but they might not have anything right now. It's a little risky. Hopefully not that risky. Like, everyone wants to stay together and be married forever and like 2050, all the things. But say they don't have a job, they're raising kids right now, their husband has a 401k, what can they do to kind of help themselves?
100%. And I agree with you. The good news is that it is community property.
Yeah,
True. But I would say that the best thing you can do is open up an account. If you don't have a job but you still want to save, or maybe you're making a little bit and you want to save, I would say open an account at a very low cost provider like Vanguard. You can open up an individual account at Vanguard, and Vanguard has great funds at very low fees. And I would just get into the habit of having it automated. If most people don't save because they go, well, they get the money in their account and then they forget about it, or it feels good, or they want to spend it, right?
Yeah.
So you have to automate it, have it come out every month like clockwork, and think of it as a tax from your future self. If the government raised rates today, you and I would, complain and be annoyed, but we'd pay it, right?
Well, I don't believe in complaining, so
you'd be annoyed. You'd be annoyed, but you'd pay the tax, right? Because you have no choice.
Yeah.
So you have to look at your future self the same way, right? You've got to put 10% away or whatever of your income, and just start socking it away, and then really not worry too much about it from there. Don't get worried about market ups and downs. They happen. They're a constant. You don't have to fear them. You can look at them as an opportunity, actually.
How often should a person check on their 401k and check in with the people who are managing it?
Yeah, I'd say no more than quarterly, and sometimes even like semi-annually, or sometimes even annually. I mean, I think that it has to do with the behavior, right? If you catch yourself knowing that looking at your statements makes you nervous, or you're one of those who looks at their account balance every day, you're going to drive yourself nuts, and you're going to lose the game of investing because you're going to be frantic.
Yeah.
Right. So that's just not how investing works, right? You want to look at it, and let me give you a statistic. So if I just look at 1 year, like next year, the odds of the market being up positive is 75%.
Okay.
3 out of 4.
Okay. That's good.
It's good.
That's good.
No. But if I look at it over a 5-year period, the odds of it being up over 5 years are 90%.
Oh.
If I look at it over a 10-year period, the odds of it being up are 98.5%.
Who says that?
So
how do you know that?
You go back and you look at segments of time. Every 10 years,
okay.
every block, you can test it back to 1900.
Cool.
So what that really means is over a 10-year period of time, you have nothing to worry about. But if you're going to look at it daily, you're going to freak out.
Yeah.
Right?
So it's down, sell.
Yeah, it's down. Oh my God. Yeah, exactly. And that's what most people do, frankly. When people make poor decisions, what do? They sell at the bottom. Yeah. So let's go look at 2008, and maybe it's you or maybe it's your parents or people.
Oh, I was deeply impacted by 2008.
Yeah, market goes down, and what do people do? They freak out and they sell. And what did the market do in 2009? It was up 40%, right? So people go, oh my
But then
gosh.
the job market reacted to 2008. It was a whole thing.
It was a whole thing. But in terms of just purely your investments.
Yeah.
So
So in 2009, sorry.
market, yeah, the 2009 the market rebounded, and now we're in one of the second longest bull market in history.
Yeah.
And there's still people, by the way, that are waiting on the sidelines, freaking out, right? They're like, oh, and now they're saying, oh well, I was scared to get in then, and now they're scared to get in now. So it's never a quote unquote good time. But I will say this: let's say you're the worst investor in the world, and you decided to invest the day before the market crashed in '08. You would be up if you didn't touch it.
Unluckiest investor.
Unluckiest.
Yeah.
Unluckiest. You would have invested. You would be up 120% today.
Wow.
Over 120% today.
Okay.
So if you wouldn't have sold.
Yeah.
So a lot of it just comes down to really ignoring the noise. And ignoring those emotional impulses to want to sell when the market's going crazy and buy when the market's high. You just want to continuously invest and not worry about it.
All right. I have another question, and then we're going to get to our user questions. And you guys, we have a ton coming in, but don't forget to send us your questions, and we'll get you an answer. Okay. So cryptocurrency.
There we go.
Haha. And, startups, the whole thing. We made a joke earlier about how some people will invest a little bit of money in a startup, and all of a sudden they're an investor, etc. But cryptocurrency right now is on the conversation of it's the conversation.
It is.
So what do you say to that millennial that's out there who is saying, okay, I can take some money and invest it in cryptocurrency, or should I take money and invest it into a 401k, and why?
Well, again, this is just my opinion. So,
but you're a qualified person to make an opinion about this.
Okay, so I would say that I had a lot of people on my feeds and stuff talking about Bitcoin when it was 17,000 and now it's 10,000.
Yeah.
In a matter of weeks. So when you have that kind of volatility, going back to what we just talked about, if you can't handle the stock market volatility, where it's a 40% correction every number of years versus one in a week or 2 weeks, you're not going to be able to you're gonna have a lot of sleepless nights.
Yeah.
I would say that I think cryptocurrencies, in my estimate, are speculative at best. So when you invest in the stock market, you're investing, and say you invest in the S&P 500. Those are 500 of the leading companies that are generating profits and selling things. Nike sells shoes, McDonald's sells food, Apple sells phones. You look around and you see those, and if you think those prices are going to be higher in the future, your next iPhone's going to be more, or your next hamburger 5 years from now is going to be more. You're investing in those companies to make profits. Mm-hmm. So cryptocurrency is there is no basis for the price increase other than fear of missing out, right? And so FOMO, right? So people get really amped up about investing. And I always say, well, if it's a currency, why is it that most people, when I ask them what their end game is, if they're making money and they're excited about it, they want to sell it and put it back into dollars.
Yeah.
So if
now there's all sorts of cryptocurrencies out there.
But if it was really a currency, you'd just keep it in Bitcoin forever.
Yeah.
Why sell it back into dollars? So dollars is the real currency.
Right.
So with the caveat that I think that there's no barriers to entry to start a cryptocurrency other than a cool name.
Yeah.
And so now we've got, we could start one this afternoon.
Okay.
And so to me, I look at this.
Bookstr points.
Yeah, there you go. So now I look at this and I go, okay, so who's going to be the one that rises to the top? No one knows. And I think ultimately that what's being misunderstood by the general population is blockchain, the chassis or the technology on which cryptocurrencies sit is a very powerful technology. It's already transforming all sorts of different companies, from IBM to Walmart and their shipping to moving medical records. It's going to be a great technology. Mm-hmm. Whether or not a currency sitting on top of that is of value, I don't really know it's of value. I mean, it's certainly of value to criminals, drug dealers, marijuana shops that can't bank with federal government.
Right, yeah.
So there are people using it for not necessarily the greatest, situations, organized crime. So I worry about those things as well.
Yeah, the regulation.
So, and governments aren't going to sit by and let currencies, become or dominate, a government centralized currency, which is important to so many transactions. So a mixture of opinions there.
All good points. Very, very good points. Okay, Travis says, for those who have not invested before, what types of investments should we start with?
Yeah, I would say, again, this is just my opinion. If you've never invested before and you're just starting out, I would open up an account like at Vanguard or somewhere like that where it's low cost, and I would probably get involved in like an S&P 500 fund. Very, very low cost. 0.05% is what a typical S&P 500 fund would cost. That way you're owning the top 500 companies in the U.S. And as that money grows, maybe when you reach kind of $25,000 or $50,000 of total that you've invested, then you can start to diversify. You can say, okay, I want to go beyond just U.S. companies. Maybe I should own some international companies. Maybe I should own emerging markets like India and China and Brazil. Maybe I should own some bonds and some other more safe, less volatile investments. So that's kind of the pathway that I would start out. And even at Vanguard or those places, they have asset allocations right now where if you want diversification now, you can say, okay, if I've got a long time horizon, I'm going to be aggressive. So I'm okay with owning a basket of stocks from all over the world, including the U.S., and that's my asset allocation. And they'll manage it for you, and all your job is to be disciplined and put that money away, and don't freak out when there's movement and volatility. Very
cool. Brooke says, do you have any tips for people who have just graduated college?
Yeah, I would say get in the game. Most people wait. There's a great example in the book here where we talk about the cost of waiting. And what we do is we outline an example where someone starts at age 19 and they contribute to their account up until 27 and they stop. And then we take the other person who started as contributing at age 27 and they contribute all the way till they're in retirement age. And the first person who did it for the first part of their life still has more money at the end.
So wild.
So compounding early on is your best friend. Anybody can have north of $1 million at retirement, even on a few $100s a month, if they start now when they're young. So teenagers, early 20s, you have a huge advantage. Your advantage is time.
Great advice. Thanks, Brooke. Chris says, should young people be using apps like Acorn that automatically invest their money? Yeah,
I think Acorn's a great starting place. I mean, if you're not familiar with Acorns, it rounds up. So if you go to Starbucks and it's $3.50, it rounds up to the nearest dollar. So now that's $4. So that extra 50 cents is automatically taken out of your account, your checking account, and goes into low-cost funds. So I think it's a great starting point. But I would say, you're not going to get to financial freedom on loose change.
Yeah.
So it's a great discipline, and it's kind of a great out of sight, out of mind thing. It kind of tricks yourself into saving. Every time you swipe your card, you're just automatically going to save. So you might save $20, $40 a month that way. But if you're really going to get to financial freedom, you need to contribute more than that. And that's where I would suggest like a Vanguard or something like that.
Yeah. How much would you recommend investing per month? Because I know with Acorn, I had a friend that did it, and that it was only like $40 or $50 that ended up being invested each month. What would you?
That's right.
What would you say would?
So I would say as a salary, if you have a job, 10% of your salary at a minimum, and work your way up to 20. Now you go, that's insane. I can't afford to do that. And so what I would say is, they've done this in the past with people they've done a study on this, blue collar workers who said, I cannot afford anything, and they started them at 3% of their salary. They said, okay, I can do that, and every year they just increased it by 1%. So next year 4%, next year 5%. And it's kind of like you don't see it happening. Mm-hmm. And by the end of the study, over 65% of those workers were contributing 18% or more.
Oh, wow.
So it's really a kind of a clever way to force yourself. But I would say if you can afford it, if you're willing to take the tax and understand it's a tax for your future self, 10% is what you should do for a salary. If it's just an amount, as much as you can. Okay. I mean, really, that's really what it comes down to, as much as you can spare.
Okay. Francesca says, despite warnings to put money aside for your 401k ASAP, the younger age group doesn't always do so. What's something easy that millennials could do to start that? And do you think the lack of preparation has to do with the poor job market?
I don't think the job market's poor. I think we have unemployment under 4%. So I think that, it might be poor if your skill set isn't equipped, right? So, but I think that at the end of the day, why I think millennials aren't putting it away is I think that they are very much a consumer generation. They want what they want, and I get that.
Which is making a lot of people rich. So
that's right. That's right.
Going,
but they got to put themselves first in this equation. And I think they have a skeptical view of brokers and financial institutions, and I'm totally okay with that. I think that what you got to do is not throw the baby out with the bathwater. You've got to read and educate yourself. I'd highly recommend Unshakable to help understand what I'll call the tricks of the trade and the pitfalls that most people make. And if you avoid those, I think you absolutely can succeed.
Great. Nijit says, how lower can the fee be for a Roth IRA management? I guess how much lower could it be for a Roth IRA than a 401k?
Again, if you go to like a Vanguard or Roth IRA, because IRAs are not part of a company plan, it's just for you individually, they can be extremely low. They can be as low as 0.2, 0.3%, so 0.2 or 0.3 of 1%.
All right. Christina says, a lot of young people might not know what a 401k actually is. Can you explain what a 401k is as if I'm 5? We kind of went through this earlier, but yeah, let's go ahead and just say it again.
This is very simple. So a 401k is something that your employer has to put in place. So if you work for a law firm, the law firm would say, we are going to start a 401k plan, and the company is called the sponsor. So they're sponsoring the plan. And what it is it's a way for all the employees to swiftly and easily and administratively put money away for retirement. Simple as that. And if you leave that, and they can have you just put in your own money, or sometimes they'll match it. They'll give you, like I said earlier, if you put in $1, they'll put in $1, which is fantastic. It's a benefit up to a certain percentage of your salary. So that's where it can be very, very valuable. And if you leave the company, this is often a question we have, what do you do? Well, if you go to a new company that has another 401k plan, you can actually roll the account balance from the first 401k to your second 401k. That's one option. Or option two is you can roll that account balance into an individual retirement account. Again, like at a Vanguard or a low-cost solution, a Schwab or somewhere like that, where you can roll it into an individual retirement account. So yeah, a 401k is just a great vehicle to save money. The benefit is it's tax efficient, meaning the money you put in you don't have to pay tax on. Not today and not while it's growing, just when you pull it out.
That's great. And what happens if your employer doesn't offer a 401k?
Yeah, if it doesn't offer a 401k, you're left on your own. You need to set up an individual retirement account. So that's it's almost the same net effect.
Yeah.
You get the same essential tax benefits, etc. But you just have to do it on your own.
And we will get to a few more questions before we have to wrap up. Marcus asks, how do I save for retirement when my expenses exceed my income?
Yeah, this is a tricky one, particularly when there's debt and other things, right? So this is one of those where you have to figure out a way to either sacrifice, minimize expenses, not necessarily the popular option, or figure out a way to increase your income by adding more value, right? We all know that as I would imagine this millennial generation is great at hustling. If you can figure out a way to, kick some butt out there and make a way to find a few $100 extra bucks a month. So the question is, are you committed? If you have to mow lawns or do whatever you have to do to make a few $100 extra bucks a month just for your retirement, whatever it might be, or sell stuff on, arbitrage, as Gary Vee says, on eBay, you can pull that off and make a few $100 a month. So sometimes there's an excuse there where you need to set that aside and say, what do I really need to do in order to earn that extra few $100 a month, knowing that it's going to take care of me down the road.
Yeah, work more now so you don't have to work more later.
That's right. Absolutely.
I also heard somebody say not too long ago that the only way that I found out that I could be rich was when I was making money while I was sleeping.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
All right, we have two more questions and then we're going to wrap. Adelaide says, can anybody from another country invest in USA to follow your suggestions?
Yeah, absolutely. You can invest in the U.S. stocks. That's the best way. And by the way, U.S. stocks are generally global companies now. If you're McDonald's or Apple, you're selling all over the world. But I would say, you can invest in the U.S. through U.S. companies by you can buy the U.S. stock market and the S&P 500, for example. And you can also buy Vanguard has a fund called the Total World Stock Portfolio. So that's essentially all the top companies in the world that you can own as well. So you don't necessarily have to be in the U.S. to invest in U.S. companies.
All right, and our last question is from Jeff, and he says, I had a 401k 20 years ago at an old job, and I have no idea where it is or what happened to it. How do I find it?
Oof, interesting.
You got to find it, man.
Yeah, this is you probably do this with your CPA. If you have a CPA, they can generally do a search and help find this for you based on your Social Security number. But yeah, go out there and find that lost money.
Yeah, that happens often, actually. I've heard of that. Oh, okay. We have one more question. Actually, I just got a slew of questions, and you guys, I don't think we're going to be able to get to all of them. We'll just do these last two. Do you have time for two more?
I think we don't. No, I
No,
have
no.
one more. How
Okay,
about
well,
one more? Quick one.
Okay. What is the least riskiest investment from Tara?
Cash. Cash is the least risky investment, but let me be honest with you. Cash is actually a losing proposition, because with inflation, most people think cash is safe,
Right.
but it's actually losing money. So I know that sounds counterintuitive, but $100,000 today is not going to be worth $100,000 20 years from now.
Right.
So many people stay in cash thinking it's safe when it's actually the worst possible investment, even though it's the least risky. And then you start to go up from there, like would be U.S. Treasuries, right? Government, government bonds. The risk of the U.S. government defaulting on bonds is slim to none when they're the ones who can print more money whenever they want. And so you kind of start to work your way up from there. And then you have bonds like municipal bonds, which are municipalities, cities that issue bonds. So those would be a little bit more risky. So those are kind of the bottom tier of what's the least risky.
Great. Josh, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much
Thanks for having
coming
me.
on. Yeah. Do you have any parting words? And how can people keep up with you?
Yeah, get in the game, number one, and get unshakable.
Yes.
So I would buy this book. It's incredible. He did a fantastic job. Some of the most amazing minds giving their advice, in a couple hundred pages. So you can't afford not to read it.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.